Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net doing my 12th site podcast. Topic of this week is Max Payne. This game started off as one of those classic PC franchises back in the early 2000s. And now, with Max Payne 3 just being released, I thought it was the perfect time for me to start talking about it. In fact, actually, my history with Max Payne goes back a very, very, very long way. And that's why I'm surprised it took me this long for me to talk about it, but I wanted you guys to know, even though I had mentioned I was going to do this when I did the Max Payne 3 unboxing, I intentionally held off on it because I didn't want to do the podcast until after I played and beat Max Payne 3. I don't think there's going to be spoilers for the third game, but if there is, I'll make sure to mention before I say anything. I first became aware of Max Payne game probably from an early issue of PC Gamer. Probably, I think it was the E3 2000 issue, where they were talking about some of the technology and some of the smaller stuff. They were doing previews for some of the games that they had seen that hadn't justified like full multiple page previews. So PC Gamer wrote a blurb about that experience that they had demoing Max Payne in 2000. And what had happened for them was that they were talking about being shown some of the technology that they had, which was going to end up in the final version of the game, and that the technology was so unbearably powerful, and of course they were going to be a PC exclusive at the time, that you could actually take Max, have him fire a weapon, freeze the game, move the camera to zoom into the bullet, and you would actually be able to read the serial number off of the bullet upon zooming into it. That I thought was completely awesome, and probably was going to bring my then computer to its knees if I was even able to get it at all. Fast forward a year later, the gathering of developers have their huge soiree at E3 2001, where Duke Nukem Forever is shown for the first time in years. Max Payne is shown in the trailers, and Max Payne was pretty close to release at that point. The game was being produced by 3D Realms, published by Gathering of Developers, and was being developed by Remedy. Now, I didn't know much about Remedy at the time, except that I knew that a few major things about it. One, that its writer was going to be the face of the game, which I thought was quite interesting. That Remedy staff was going to be appearance as games. The game was going to have photorealistic textures, and it was going to tell a story about an undercover cop that becomes vigilante. I thought, awesome. Perfect. They were showing like the graphic novels and stuff like that. I loved reading noirish graphic novel style. I thought it was awesome, and I really wanted to see them continue with it. I really wanted to see what the finished product was going to look like. So that summer the game came out. I followed the status of it very closely, and yes, I believe this was summer 2001. I remember working for my father that summer, and I would be getting like about $50 a day or something like that, just doing work for him from like 9 to 5 or something. He's an electrician, and I was basically just helping his crew out and everything else. And I make $50 a day, and intentionally what I did was I used the money that I got working for him for a day and bought Max Payne with it for the PC in my local Kmart, I guess. And I thought for sure there was probably no chance that my PC had any chance of playing it, because earlier in that summer, Anachronox had come out. And I'll talk about that probably in another podcast, but I couldn't get Anachronox to run it. It actually had a lower system requirement than they did. That game required, I think it was 12 megabytes of video RAM. I know that sounds really small at the time, but at the time I was using 8. I had 8, and that was, I thought, pretty high, actually. Then when 12 came out and became the bare minimum, I thought, yeah, I was going to have to upgrade the system. But it turned out, with the way the system was designed, I couldn't upgrade the video card on it. It didn't have an AGP slot, and all the modern video cards at the time used these AGP slots. Intel was notorious for doing this back then. Whenever you had an Intel board, because Intel basically had its own onboard video, it didn't assume that the user, it incorrectly didn't assume that the user had any interest in upgrading to any type of real graphics card, because Intel's graphics cards were always terrible. But actually, I take it back. Back then, when I had that board, Intel's was pretty much just the baseline and the low end. Now they're pretty much not even considered anymore. But back then it was usable. It was just low end. Nowadays it's like not even part of the part of the scale. It's beyond low end. It's like will not play at all. But so I actually remember saving for 3 days or something like that to buy like a GeForce 2, and unfortunately finding out, the slot that a GeForce 2 uses is not the slots that were on that board. And I had to put the card in storage until I bought a new system that had we later did buy a new full system with its own accelerated graphics port, and I immediately within a week switched out that card with the one I bought, and performance was just beyond what I could possibly have ever imagined in the game. And when I finally did get a chance to play it, in fact, I used Max Payne to benchmark the new system. When that opening cinematic played with just the helicopters swooping through New York, and the landscapes, and that huge opening action scene where Max is at the top of the building, was just awesome. Was just beyond awesome, I thought. It was amazing. And I thought, wow, I cannot wait to play this. I really can't. And I remember spending that summer playing through the game and just loving every second of it, because this was the kind of game that I was really looking forward to. I loved the adult themes. I loved the style. I loved the gameplay. It was really hard. Even on the low difficulty, the game was really hard. But with the fact that the bullet time gameplay really, really balanced it out, I thought. It also had a few similarities. I know a lot of people were saying, Remedy was saying specifically, that early on they were kind of worried that they were going to be considered like a Tomb Raider clone, when in fact actually I don't think anybody actually talked about that. But I did recognize some similarities with actually another game that I was playing that summer, which was called No One Lives Forever. And even though that game really had nothing to do with Max Payne whatsoever, they did both have a dock scene where you both have to break into a ship, and I thought there was some similarity there. But other than that, the game was completely unique. I loved the Easter eggs. I loved the televisions and all the interactivity that was in it. Obviously, since 3D Realms had a hand in the game, it really had that. In fact, actually, I think what really, really got me into the game before the game came out, and the reason why the game became such a quick purchase for me, was PC Gamer actually did do a full article on it in a issue. I think it was a couple months, like 3 months before the game came out. PC Gamer did a full multi-page article on it in one of the best issues they ever did, which included the full version of the 1.3 version of Duke Nukem 3D for free, actually, on that disc. And they played it, and I was so interested in it because we got to see the story for the first time. We got to see a lot of the I guess you would say the cuts, what the cutscenes looked like, and what the graphics looked like, and what the novels looked like, and everything else. So I was like, by that point, I was like, sign me up. I put my money down, even if I didn't have a working system. I was ready for it based upon that PC Gamer article. I don't think I've ever really felt that way about games. About a game, about an article I had simply just read, where I was just that surprised. I don't think that that hasn't happened in a long time. So with that all having been said, what did I think of the final version of the game? I thought it was fantastic. Absolutely, totally, and utterly fantastic. And after beating it, all I wanted was a sequel. I really did. I was just so impressed by it because it was just so much fun. So fast forward just a tiny bit of time. I was still in high school, and I guess I really hadn't heard any talk about a Max Payne sequel. But about a year later, I was kind of anticipating that if something was to come up, it would probably be announced at that next year's E3. And sure enough, at that next year's E3, Max Payne 2 got announced, although it was announced very low key. What had happened was that the developers and the publisher announced that Remedy, who had made the first Max Payne game, had sold the rights to Max Payne to the publisher, which was Take-Two Interactive, for a pretty good amount of money, like $20 million and a lot of stock. And part of that money went to 3D Realms, part of that money went to Remedy, and for basically a job well done. And that Remedy was going to, even though they didn't have the license anymore, they were going to be making Max Payne 2. So the company that made Max Payne 1 was going to make Max Payne 2, and 3D Realms was going to be producing it again. And I just thought, awesome! Sign me up! I can't wait to play it. I got the system upgraded. I want to play this new game. So some time passed, and shortly after that announcement got made, I was writing for Planet Anachronox at the time. And Planet Anachronox, I heard from the webmaster of Planet Anachronox that the site was shutting down. That GameSpy realized that after Anachronox came out, there was really no further news to be done with it. The game was over. The modding scene was really, it hadn't taken off. So the system was being shut down. And I was kind of scrambling. Is like, well, what do I do? Do I have a do I go back to what do I have anywhere to go? And there was some talk to the webmaster. I talked to the guys who did Planet Deus Ex, and they were interested in me possibly going for that. I don't know how interested they were. It was just something that was told to me by the Planet Anachronox webmaster. His name was Gwog. I don't know what his real name is. I never learned his real name. But that's what he told me. And he says, I can get you on Planet Deus Ex, but I wasn't really interested in that because I had never played Deus Ex at the time. Even though I had played Daikatana and I had played Anachronox, I had not actually played Deus Ex. And yeah, so that's what happened. But however, with an interesting form of coincidence, the Deep Six, which was GameSpy's Max Payne site, announced that they were looking for writers, actually. And I submitted my information, said, "Hi, I'm with Planet Anachronox. The site's shutting down. You guys can read my articles here. I'd love to write for you guys. I'm a huge Max Payne fan." And I checked the logs later on from the webmaster and everything else, and they all said the same thing. When they read my articles on Planet Anachronox, the guys were ready to put me on immediately. And I started writing for them. This was just after Max Payne 1 had come out. Max Payne 2 had not come out yet. So I was basically just writing whatever interested me. I was given some pretty good freedom. I was writing articles. I was writing some stories. I later was creatively interested in writing some fan fiction. Some of that stuff you could probably still find. I had a fanfiction net profile. I don't post fan fiction to my site for obvious, for reasons that, I write articles. My site is a news site. It's an article site. Fan fiction is unnecessary. But, I actually did post those on fanfiction net later on after Deep Six got shut down, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I started writing for them. And my emails kept coming saying, would you like to go to E3 2003? From GameSpy. We'd love to get you in. I was living in California at the time because I was going to school out there, and I was intending to stay out there permanently. Probably I was hoping that after I got out of school I was going to get a job working for one of the site. I was planning on trying to get a job working for a gaming company or a gaming news company. And I was really excited and energized about going to E3 for 2003. And I said, yes, I'd love to go. I got a letter signed by Fargo saying, this guy is good. Let him in. And that year I went. And I had wanted to go to E3 ever since the year 2000. So you can imagine how excited I was that I got to go that year for the first time. And happy I got to go and grateful that I got to go. And I was there, another guy working for the Deep Six, his name was Avenir. His name was Diego. We called him Avenir or Av for short, so I'll refer to him as Av for the rest of this podcast. By the way, Av, if you're still available, what's up? I haven't heard from you in forever. Obviously, man, I'd love to hear from you again. But so what happened? We went on behalf of GameSpy, and I ended up hanging out in the GameSpy headquarters that they had set up in the place for a period of time. They were doing live podcasts and stuff like that. They were doing, which was really, actually no, not even podcasts. Podcasts really weren't around back then. It was like they were doing live streams back then, which was very, very unusual. It was possible. People had done it on rare occasions. Nowadays, everybody can do a live stream, but this was something that was really, really unusual. David Lawrence was doing them. I thought that was pretty cool. I got to meet some of the guys who worked at GameSpy. I did not get to meet Fargo. Fargo was really, really bogged down in meetings and everything else, although I think I caught him at one point when he was in the middle of a demo or something. But no, unfortunately, I never got to meet him. That was one of my regrets because he was just so busy that time. He was just doing demos and stuff. And, oh gosh, what had happened? And I remember scouring the area for any information on Max Payne 2. Now, like I said, it had been announced the year prior. I was kind of hoping for a showing. And I remember looking around and seeing nothing except a giant poster on the back of Take-Two's booth set up. But I never saw the game. We never got to see the game. And I was really disappointed. And I later talked to some of the guys at the GameSpy headquarters, and they said even they hadn't seen the game. That they just were not allowing. There was basically only invitations only, and even GameSpy couldn't get in. I think the only people that they let see the game were probably like the members of the magazine press and stuff like that, and the local Finnish press and stuff. People that they weren't really, the game wasn't available to be demoed. Even, it was behind closed doors only. So I thought that was kind of disappointing. So, actually, I found out later on when I finally met up with Av, he had actually run into Sam Lake, and he had actually run into some of the other guys who worked for Remedy, like, oh God, I can't remember his name. I can't remember the guy's name. But some of the guys, all the other guys, and he got pictures with them, actually. And I thought that was just awesome. And, but unfortunately, I didn't get much news from it. But you know what? It was my first E3. There was plenty of other stuff I had to write about. And I remember writing about a ton of just great articles and previews for the site based on what I saw at E3. We got back, and then the news, after a couple months, the news started to pick up for Max Payne 2 once the NDAs for some of the press lifted. Max Payne 2 news started to really fire up. And everybody was really looking forward to the game. And I remember this was like one of the first times I actually pre-ordered for a game, because what had happened was that I remember most of my other games I usually sent out for the mail, but by that point I had moved back about mid 2004 about mid 2003 I moved back to Connecticut. And out of California, and I had no real intentions of going back anytime soon. And I really was looking forward to I was finally happy just being able to go to the store and buying games again, because I didn't have a car in California. And just other stuff was happening. But Max Payne 2 came out. And I remember being so against pre-orders and stuff like that I actually did intentionally pre-order the game. And I remember just because I wanted to get a t-shirt with it. And I did, I got the t-shirt. But when the game came out on the release day, I pre-ordered it at the store. They didn't have it. Every other store had it. The fact that I pre-ordered actually hindered me from getting the game. And I was furious, absolutely furious. Just beyond furious. And after about 3 or 4 days, and the first thing they always say is like, did you pre-order? Like, in this case, most people would say no. well, we don't have any. It's like, well, they say, it's like they still give the spiel. Even if they don't have any product, they still say, did you pre-order? Yes. Oh. Oh. Yeah, we don't have any at all. We never got any. And, but after about 3 or 4 days of me constantly coming in asking for the game that I already had paid for, um, I remembered that they just went easy on me and said, just go to the store down the street or something and pick it up there. They're fine with it. And then I finally got to play Max Payne 2. And I thought in a lot of cases Max Payne 2 was actually better than Max Payne 1. I know this is a lot of people would argue about that because Max Payne 1 was just so unbearably good. But Max Payne 2 was really good too because I thought that it had some great style to it. They improved the gameplay mechanics of the bullet time a lot. I loved I loved what they did with the returning characters. I really did. I loved that they chose to make it a love story. The thing about it was that I really liked, probably one of my favorite characters in the first Max Payne games were Vlad, who was the head of the Russian mob who formed an alliance with Max because he needed some help because he knew Max was stirring up some crazy stuff. This Russian guy shows up and asks Max to do some stuff for him and he'll help him out, which I thought was really awesome. I really liked Vlad in that first game. But also I really liked Mona Sachs, who was the twin of, or she referred to, the evil twin of the Don's wife, and was a contract killer. Was interested in killing her sister's husband because her sister's husband was abusive. The mafia don, his name was Punchinello, was an abusive husband, and she wanted to take out the husband herself. And meanwhile, of course, Max was interested in the same thing, ironically enough. So that was, I think, probably one of my favorite moments of that game. Was the interaction between Max and Mona, even though on a few occasions, like Mona would slip him a drug but really her intentions weren't bad. She was just like a femme fatale. She had her own objectives and she didn't want Max getting in her way. She wasn't going to kill him because she trust me, if she wanted to just simply kill him, she probably would have tried. She just wanted him out of the way. But the girl could also hold her own because when Max tries to go into Punchinello's mansion, she tries to attack him. He tries to go after Punchinello at his own home. The guards were already dead and the place had already been broken into. He wasn't the first person trying to do that night, and his money was on that she had probably done it. And I thought that was just plain awesome. At the very end, it seems like she's been killed under very suspicious circumstances. No body was found. And I kind of thought, yeah, she's alive. Yeah, she's just got to be alive. And when they finally announced that Max Payne 2, and we saw the poster, Mona Sachs, they said Mona Sachs is back and this is a love story. And I thought, awesome. All my favorite. I know a lot of people had, some of my friends, their favorite character was Vinny Gognitti. My favorite probably character was Vlad, and Mona. Of course, everybody loved Max, of course, but I thought that was just awesome that they did all that, and that they were bringing everybody back. So I play the second game. And I'm loving every second of it. Some of the stuff. There's just some great moments. Like probably some of my favorite parts were like the very early beginnings of the game, where Max goes to check out on Vlad, who's running the updated Ragnarok. That's now he wants to turn into a restaurant, and people are trying to kill him, and he's like, Max, bad guys with big guns coming for you. And then when you're coming in, announcing Max Payne is coming in here, you're going to die now. Best ever. That was great. That was real. I thought that was just awesome. I really liked that. I liked the Mona's return. I thought that was really cool, seeing that she was back and safe. But then, of course, as the game progressed, yeah, Remedy was slowly, yeah, killing off everybody that was in the previous games except for Max. I mean, as I gotta say, spoilers, but then again, this is the spoilers for a game that's like 7, 8 years old. I mean, Vinny Gognitti died, um, and then Vlad turned on you, and I gotta admit, when I first played that, I was just so upset. But I got to admit that the Remedy guys, to their credit, put it into something interesting, because they were kind of saying like that Vlad's intentions were not selfish or greedy. They were in the best, they were in what he thought was the right thing to do. Was to kind of betray Max, and or put himself at odds with Max because he wanted to kill Woden. And here was Mona that had sided with Woden in this whole inner circle battle. So the two of them were at odds, and of course Max was going to choose the side that was with his girl. And and Vlad knew that. He didn't want to do it, but he knew that it was kind of like fate, basically. So I respected that, actually. I didn't feel like that. I still didn't like it because I loved Vlad as a character, and I did not like at the end when Max had to kill him, because I really, really, really liked Vlad, and I wanted him in more games. And then at the very end, Mona died. Also very, very, very sad. And I know I actually got an email recently when I did the Max Payne 3 unboxing, but Mona didn't die. She survived. There was an alternate ending at the highest difficulty. If you beat the game on the highest difficulty, Mona survives. And that's true. Mona does survive at the highest difficulty. But the problem is that I don't think that that's considered a canonical ending. I think the canonical ending is the ending where she died. And Mona does not appear in Max Payne 3, and she's only really mentioned once. And it's not really mentioned in Max Payne 3 if Mona is alive or dead. He just kind of refers to it as, like, the first two games as like the Mona business or something. But he never makes a mention of that, of really what had happened. And actually, ironically enough, there's a scene where Max is going through a cemetery in Max Payne 3. All right, spoilers. Spoiler tag. And he doesn't find her grave. The only graves that he finds in the cemetery, we clearly are listed in the cemetery, was Winterson's grave, who had basically been a corrupt cop that was Max's boss in the second game, who he had to kill. He did kill her, and the reason why was because she was corrupt, and she was going to kill Mona. He finds Gogniti's grave. Gogniti is dead. And he finds Horn's grave, who was the villain of the first game. But there's no grave for Vlad, and there's no grave for Mona, at least none that I saw. Looked pretty good, but I did not find a grave for either of them. So maybe I don't know. But like I said, I'm not holding my breath, because I don't think that's a canonical ending. But, you guys are free to disagree with me. Like I said, it's never stated specifically in Max Payne 3 that she is dead. But I really don't think that that's a canonical ending. And I love Mona. I really was kind of hoping to see her come back. I really was. But she does not. I hope she does. I really do. I do hope she does. So I'm kind of hoping, that maybe she will come back. But for right now, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I think that she is probably dead. But then again, that's happened in games before. There were endings in, like, for example, Metal Gear Solid. The first Metal Gear Solid, there were two possible endings. One was where, Solid Snake's girlfriend, Meryl, dies at the end, and he ends up hooking up with Otacon instead. Not that kind of hookup. And then there's the ending where Meryl lives, and it looks like they're gonna get together at the end. And then but you didn't know what was going to be the official ending. And of course, in Metal Gear Solid 2, she's really not really mentioned if she's alive or dead, but Solid Snake is working with Otacon now, so it's probably assumed that she had died. But of course, in Metal Gear Solid 4, she comes back alive and well. So it's obvious that, that the first ending, the ending where she lived, was the canonical one. because otherwise she would have died. and and funny that she did know all the information that only was given in the other ending. Like we only knew that Meryl was the Colonel's daughter um, by playing the ending where she had died. There was no mention that she was his daughter in the ending where she lived. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I'm talking about Metal Gear Solid, and I've already done that before. So let's switch tracks back to Max Payne. I think Mona's dead, but I'm more than happy if they want to bring her back. I'd be more than happy to see her come back because I really liked her a lot as a character. I thought she was awesome, and I thought that the second game really could have done well if they had decided to play up that angle. But I know they probably figured, well, we did that in Max Payne 2, let's not do that again. But maybe if they do a Max Payne 4, which is certainly a possibility, they can do that. So, yeah, after Max Payne 2 comes out, all of my content really switched over. When I was still working for the Deep Six at the time of the Max Payne 3 lead up. I'm sorry, the Max Payne 2 lead up. So Av really was the kind of guy who liked posting information about game mods and updates and modifications and stuff like that, whereas I was the kind of person who liked tracking stuff like game updates, latest tidbits about release, that sort of thing. So the fact that both of us were posting news on the Deep Six worked really well. We both had our own strengths. He liked posting about the mod community, and I liked posting updates about Max Payne 2, and I even kept my own little FAQ on the site, because I was inspired to do so by the Duke Nukem Forever FAQ that was hosted on Planet Duke Nukem. Yeah. Yeah. And so all of that going on. Max Payne 2 comes out, and I'm just happy as hell and loving every second of that game. But then we hit a dark patch, and the reason why is because that even though a lot of cases Max Payne 2 was considered to be a better game to Max Payne 1, it wasn't as long. It was actually shorter. And a lot of people complained, that was one of the major complaints about Max Payne was that the Max Payne campaign was short. Max Payne 2 was even shorter than Max Payne 1. And a lot of the developers had promised that this was going to be a longer game. So this was surprising in a lot of respects. And the reason why that a lot of people were complaining about Max Payne 2 was because of that. Was because, it was a great game, but it was short. And so Max Payne 2 didn't have the sales of Max Payne 1. And then Remedy, who was the Max Payne creators, decided to switch focus to a different franchise and left it all to Rockstar. Rockstar, of course, was owned by Take-Two, but Take-Two took the Rockstar name when they realized when the popularity of Grand Theft Auto 3 just hit the wall. In case you guys are curious about a little history lesson, I know I mentioned Gathering Developers earlier for the E3 showings for the original Max Payne. Gathering Developers went bye-bye, and shortly around 2001 or so. All their properties that they were managing, of which if they had kept, oh my god, they would have made a fortune. Of their properties that they were holding on to, basically it got taken, which was included Grand Theft Auto 3, Max Payne, and Serious Sam and stuff like that. All would have benefited greatly had they held out and let those games come out, but unfortunately the company had gotten absorbed before Max Payne and everything else had come out. And so Take-Two got the rights, and of course Take-Two owned Rockstar, and Rockstar had made Grand Theft Auto 3, and its later games like Grand Theft Auto Vice City and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. But what had happened was that the popularity kind of got to Rockstar. The name Rockstar became like almost a household name, and nobody had really heard of Take-Two. So Take-Two changed their name officially to Rockstar, and they kind of, occasionally there's a split, like they have 2K games now as well. That's why Max Payne 2 was published under the Rockstar name as opposed to the Take-Two name or just some just anonymous name. Take-Two announced in their fiscal findings later on that year, I think it was around 2004, that, and this made big news, that Rockstar, even though they were not totally positively happy about the the Max Payne 2 sales, they were not writing off the franchise entirely because of the strength of the first game, and they simply just decided that the game should go dark for a while, and they would make their own, Max Payne game, like a Max Payne 3 game in-house later on down the road. Years pass, and a lot of years pass, and there's a reorganization basically among the GameSpy network. Around 2005, IGN buys GameSpy, or they merge with GameSpy, or whatever. And I never got an invite to E3 2005. I got an invite to E3 2004. Didn't see any Max Payne references, anything Max Payne-ish there. There was nothing Max Payne-ish shown at E3 2004. And I was still focusing on Remedy, and Remedy was working on Alan Wake, and I remember getting one of the first interviews with Alan Wake post E3, because I didn't go to that E3 where they showed Alan Wake for the first time. But I remember getting the first interview with them through email, and that was like one of the last things I did for the site, because after that, the Deep Six broke. And what had happened was that the Deep Six had a redesign with an open source engine, which made it easier for us to update the site and post up news articles and stuff like that. Because back then, and if you wanted to update news to a site, you had to use Dreamweaver and everything else. There was no scripts back then where you could just log into a site and update it. Although there were, but it wasn't for... We didn't have that on those sites. We didn't have it on Planet Anachronox. We didn't have it on... We didn't have it in the... if we wanted to add a web page, I had to write something up, send it to the webmaster via email, or instant message or something like that, but mostly email. And he would have to use a third-party program like Adobe Dreamweaver or something like that, create a page, and upload that to the site and have everything linked. It was tough. It was tough back then. So the webmaster redesigned the entire site to have a login system so that we could update the site's news postings, we could update the site articles and stuff like that very easily. But the downside was whenever GameSpy changed their framework, the site would break. And GameSpy back then was changing their framework almost daily. Well, not almost daily, but quite often. Eventually the site, and so the webmaster was going to would fix it. And that could take a couple of days. Eventually got to the point where the webmaster was like, I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I'm not, it's like I'm moving on. Here, somebody else take control of the site. And the site broke again, and it went down for, it just stayed down. And so I was without a site. And I went dark for a while. I basically focused on finishing up my college education. I still kept very close tabs on the gaming industry, but I wasn't actively participating in it. I hadn't been invited to E3s anymore. Then again, E3 kind of closed down after 06, and for 07 and 08 was pretty much low-key. It didn't come back until 09. And I had still been kicking around the idea for a long time about starting my own site myself. I had some friends that were also familiar with the gaming industry, Twitch being one of them. And of course, no Max Payne news, really. At some point, I think the Deep Six relaunched. And it had a new webmaster. I hadn't been notified about it. I think this might have been shortly around the time Max Payne 3 did get announced. But I remember seeing the first Max Payne news and just thinking, what? What am I seeing? It was a picture of a fat, bald Max. I'm like, what is this? What am I seeing? And they announced the synopsis that he's a heavy drinker, he's addicted to painkillers, he's now living in Brazil. And I'm just like, what? I was like, what? What the heck is Rockstar doing? By that point, my focus had stayed on Remedy, who was making Alan Wake, and all my focus would turn to them. And I was kind of hoping that just something was going to happen, and the Remedy guys were going to hopefully take the game away, or complete the Rockstar, take the game away from Rockstar or something, or Rockstar would ask them to complete the game around the time that they finished Alan Wake or something. I was holding out hope for something to happen or something to swoop in, because when I first saw Max Payne 3's previews, when they announced it, my feelings were overwhelmingly negative, just completely overwhelmingly negative. I'm looking at this like, okay, first off, the game is not taking place in New York. Max does not look like Max. He looked like something out of Kane and Lynch or something like that, which the game was a complete flop. And I was completely just disappointed. I'm like, I waited all these years for a Max Payne 3 game, and this is what I get? I was disgusted and disappointed, and just very disappointed in Rockstar, because I'm like, you just spent all this money on their property, and you're going to destroy that credit. You know, you bought this really credible property who's made two fantastic games that have had great, fantastic themes to them, and you're just throwing that all out because you're making this game. Are you insane? And don't get me wrong, I kind of feel that same way about kind of like Prey 2, for example. Because, Prey, the first Prey game was just phenomenal. And they announced that a Prey 2 was going to happen, and I even got to see Prey 2 shown. But it wasn't a Prey game. And now there's talk that that company's been shut down, and that development house has been shut down, and they're switching publishers, and the game's been delayed. And I'm just thinking, maybe that's for the best. Although, to be perfectly honest, what I did see of Prey at E3 was pretty cool. So that all aside, I'm sidetracking myself, but I think it's all relevant because the kind of the themes that are happening with Max Payne are also themes that have happened with the gaming industry in general, and I can cite plenty of examples where this has happened elsewhere, and that's what I'm doing. But I'll try to hold off doing that for right now. In fact, even I remember Remedy saying like they were no comment at first when they first started hearing about it. They were also talking about the Max Payne movie, and yeah, the Max Payne movie was a big deal as well. I thought Mark Wahlberg for that casting, when they finally announced what was going on with the Max Payne movie, that there was going to be a Max Payne movie. It was going to be kind of like a first video game, and that Mark Wahlberg had been cast. I thought, yeah, because I really liked Mark Wahlberg in Three Kings. I thought that was an awesome movie, and I really thought he was fantastic in it. So I thought, yeah, he has the acting chops. He could totally do Max Payne. He kind of had the look. And then I saw the movie, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't totally thinking this wasn't a Max Payne game. I'm sorry, it wasn't a Max Payne movie. I mean, it had the Max Payne name on it. The characters had the names on it. It had similarities to the Max Payne story. But it didn't capture the spirit of the game. There were just inconsistencies between it and the game. It just seemed like the guys who made the Max Payne movie had the ingredients, or had some of the ingredients to what could make a Max Payne movie, but not all the ingredients, if that makes any sense. I do think that I think Mila Kunis was a really good actress, and I really love her for the Family Guy show. And no, I don't think that it's fair what everyone does to Meg in that show, but I don't think she was the right casting choice. I really don't. Other things I didn't think were nice casting choices. I think they were good. I think they really had some interesting things. I did think who they cast for Horn was a good casting choice. And I thought who they cast for BB was also a good casting choice. But, because they got Beau Bridges to play BB. I really like that a lot. However, they didn't really do anything with Horn. The story was mostly about Lupino and BB. Where, of course, like I understand that you have time constraints and stuff like that, and there was no Vladimir, although I think there might have at one point been a character that looked a lot like it could have been Vladimir, although he's never named. The movie didn't go anywhere with it. I think that they went a little bit overboard with Mona. She acted. I think that in a few cases she acted unprofessionally, and I think that they kind of went the wrong way with Alex, with Max's partner Alex, and they didn't do a good job, establishing to the theater what Max's background was. They did a terrible job at that. And that was kind of what the essence, that opening scene for Max Payne, the game, where he's trying to get into, and save his wife and daughter. That scene, which I remember reading in the trade when I was reading a preview of it for the first time, I'm like, that scene was what hooked me to the Max Payne universe. Was they did that. They went there. This is this guy's life. You got to play that time. He comes home and he's too late. He's too late to save his family. You played that. You had to be that powerless. And later on in the game, you have to play his nightmares where that same thing happens. That made you feel like Max Payne. They could have done that in the movie. There was nothing that could have stopped them from it. They should have done that in the movie. I know you're going to say, well, that's kind of hard to go there. Yeah, but this is the character. That scene is the essence of the character. It defined him. It defined him. It's what made him go crazy, vigilante, and go after the entire mob when he had been betrayed. It was like he had nothing to lose. They kind of established, like, it's easy to say, nothing to lose. He truly had nothing to lose. And that's what made him so interesting as a character. It was like, this is the guy who has nothing to lose. And they did not get that across in the movie really very well. It kind of just, that sort of thing. It had some cool visuals, with the Valkyr drug trips. I got to give him that. Did not make Mona and her sister. I didn't like what they did with Mona's sister. Mona's sister in Lisa Punchinello. Mona's sister in the game was like a Susie Homemaker type woman. We never really see her in the game. She's dead by the time we get there. But yeah, they kind of treated her like she was like some kind of prostitute drug addict or something like that in the movie. I did not like that. That was not Lisa Punchinello at all. So yeah, there was that. Yeah. So, but then there was something that was going on later on, and the game went dark. Max Payne 3 went dark. They originally had it fixed. I think it was originally supposed to come out like December 2010 or something like that. Yeah, I think that was when it was originally supposed to come out. And then the game went dark and got delayed, and I was just thinking, please cancel the game. Please just cancel the game. And for several months, we heard nothing. It had been actively promoted. The game had a solid release date, and then the game just was like, we're pulling the release date. The game went dark, and we didn't know what was going on. And I was just kind of hoping, Alan Wake is out now. Maybe they're going to say, just tell Remedy to fix the game or something like that. But no luck. But what had happened instead was that they finally picked the game back up. The game did not go dark. This new preview started coming out. New screenshots started coming out showing Max with hair. And Max in New York. And they're like, what is this? What are they doing? And then, of course, there was the other scenes of the fat bald Max, but still, they had the scenes in New York where they were kind of showing, we're going to be given flashbacks, we're going back to New York occasionally, you're going to see that. And I'm thinking, okay, it's a step in the right direction, but I wasn't wowed yet. Until I demoed the game at New York Comic Con 2011. At New York Comic Con, I went there, I got in, and one of the first games I got to see was Max Payne 3 as a member of the press. And I was just blown away, completely blown away. Thinking this is, the guy doing the demo was like, this has always been like a film noir film noir story of like about a man who's nothing to lose and everything else. And and I got to see the gameplay mechanics, and they said that they changed some things, like they had it limited to only so many weapons being held at the time. And then there was cover system, like, yeah, you got a cover system, but we're not going to use it. It's like you can still, all out action sort of thing. We got James McCafferty back. The theme was back. It felt like Max Payne again. It had been updated to more of a more recent noir. They went away from like things like they said that they exchanged like the graphic novel panels to instead do like a more modern novel, like a motion comic kind of novel, kind of like what had been done with like Man on Fire and stuff like that, or in the more recent visual comics like the Watchmen comic and stuff like visual comic and stuff. They were going with that, and I thought, okay, it's that's a more, they're going for a more recent noir. Okay, I can be on board for that. The gameplay looked solid. I got to see the New York level. I thought it was pretty fun looking. I even got to see the Sao Paulo level that they showed. It was, in case you guys are curious what I saw the second half of level 4 of chapter 4 in Max Payne 3 and the beginning of chapter 10. Those levels were pretty much identical still. They kept those intact. They didn't really change them that much. But I did see one of Max's neighbors. I kind of thought it kind of reminded me of the living version of, and if you've played Max Payne 3, look out for this guy. Trust me, you won't be able to not see him. Reminded me a lot of like, oh, that must have been Jeff Dunham's friend, Ahmed the Dead Terrorist, back when he was alive. Reminded me a lot of that. I thought that was awesome. So, Max Payne 3 is announced. It gets a tentative release date, I think, of like March. And they say that they're going to do a collector's edition with it, and that they were going to cut off the collector's edition sale pre-orders in January. So I put my pre-order down in January. The game gets delayed, so of course I'm mad. They didn't officially cut off the pre-orders until April, I think, because the game constantly kept getting delayed a couple of months. This for finishing, polishing, and stuff like that. There was that. Yeah. But I still had the pre-order down. I still picked up. You guys can watch the unboxing on my channel if you haven't seen it yet. Really cool unboxing for $100. Some of the download stuff alone was pretty awesome. Although if you've got a Rockstar Pass or if you buy the Rockstar Pass, you're going to get the same content. And also, a lot of map packs are coming for this game for multiplayer. Well, that is it, guys. I want to thank you all for listening. I want you all to check out my website, gameaccess.net. If you want to check out the Max Payne 3 unboxing, it's another video on this channel. I think it's the last video I uploaded to this channel. So give that a look. Thanks again. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing my next podcast, or when I'll be doing my next podcast, or what the topic will be, but you can be sure that more podcasts will be coming, as well as other site videos in the near future. So thanks again. This is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Over and out.